afternoon. I'm Jim McKay speaking to you from Nashville. Why has Wide World come here on this particular afternoon? We want to show you yet another corner of the wide world of motorsport. This is a brand new speedway here in Nashville. And although this location has always been a real hotbed of stock car motor racing, it's the first time that anybody's ever run a race on this track. It's a different kind of motor racing situation. The steepest banking in all the world. 35 degrees between turn 1 and 2 and between turns 3 and 4. It's only a 5/8 of a mile track, so this makes for tremendous pounding on the chassis and the underpinnings of these stock racing cars. In fact, 36 cars started the race. The last time I counted, only 15 were left. And the leader, as we said, is a man named Bobby Isaac from Catawba, North Carolina. Stand by then. We'll be bringing you our live color coverage of the Grand National Stock Car Race from the Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee, today on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Again, we're back live at the Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee. This is Jim McKay reporting, and I'm seated now with our colleague on these racing telecasts, Chrissy Kanamaki, the editor of National Speed Sport. There's the spin in the straightaway. A car just spun into the pits. Car number 10, driven by Bill Champion of Norfolk, Virginia. There it is. He very narrowly missed the pit wall. Couldn't have spun in a better particular position as long as he had to spin right there. Didn't hit anybody, nor is he hurt apparently. There is Bill, the oldest regular driver on the NASCAR circuit. Bill Champion, who was well back in the pack at this point in the race. And there is the leader, Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina. Bobby Isaac has been locked in a season-long deal with James Hilton for the Grand National Stock Car point lead. There is Bill Champion being led from his car. Isaac and James Hilton were only 10 points apart, with Hilton leading going into today's race. Hilton is out of it now, though, and Isaac, should he continue, will be the leader for that championship. This race began, a little over an hour and a half ago. So let's go back to that moment and listen to my commentary as we did it at the time on the beginning of this affair. A field of 36 cars is just about ready for the start on the newly paved, brand new racetrack in Nashville, Tennessee. This is NASCAR Grand National Racing. It'll be 420 laps, 250 miles on the steepest banked track in the world. 35 degrees on turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's only a 5/8 of a mile track, so the speeds and the action should be tremendous. That's Leroy Yarborough sitting on the pole in car number 98. And right alongside him, car number 71, Bobby Isaac. The green flag is out, and here they go. It's Yarborough going into the first turn. Leroy taking the lead. Bobby Isaac is second, and Richard Petty is third. Rookie of the year last year, Richard Brooks, was fourth, but he has dropped back to fifth behind James Hilton, who hits the wall. James Hilton in fourth place hit the wall, but straightened himself out again, and it's Leroy Yarborough leading at the end of one lap. Isaac is second, Richard Petty is third, James Hilton is fourth with a banged up right rear fender. And now Cuckoo Marlin has taken over fifth place, a hometown favorite in Nashville, Tennessee. Leroy Yarborough beginning to stretch out his lead in the early going. He's got about 50 yards over Richard Petty, and then Bobby Isaac. James Hilton is fourth, Cuckoo Marlin is still fifth, Bobby Allison is sixth and beginning to move up. All right, what you were watching and listening to happened about an hour and a half ago at the very beginning of this 250-mile, 420-lap race here in Nashville. This is a live picture again now and a live report. Bobby Isaac, as we said, is the leader in this race, and at this point, according to the official NASCAR scoring, he is one lap ahead of car number 22, Bobby Allison. Dave Marcus is third, and that's the way they stand right now. We'll be back in a minute for more of the live action. This is the live action. Bobby Isaac leading the Grand National NASCAR Stock Car Race at Nashville, Tennessee. Temperature somewhere in the high 90s with a humidity to match. 36 cars started in this race. Less than 15 are on the track right now. Bobby with a one-lap lead over Bobby Allison. Now, the early leader in this race was Leroy Yarborough. He was passed by Richard Petty and was cruising along in second place when something happened to Leroy's car. On the steep banking, he hit the wall and suddenly just limped into the pit. You can see the right side of his car as Leroy came in here about an hour ago after running very well behind Richard Petty. Leroy was the only one of the cars here which had practiced on this track yesterday. As we said, it's a brand new track. Nobody's ever raced on it before, and it's a very unusual one with the 35-degree banking. Leroy had practiced here yesterday while the others were preparing for a race last night in Maryville, Tennessee, some 200 miles away. So Leroy was very well set up for the race. It was going well, but then he hit the wall. As it turned out, this was the end of the afternoon for Leroy Yarborough. Working with us today in the pits is a man who usually is racing on these occasions, Dr. Don Tarr, a medical doctor from Miami, Florida, who's also a fine race driver. And let's go down to Dr. Tarr right now.
Okay, Leroy, what happened out there?
Can't hear you.
I asked you what happened out there.
Oh, excuse me, Don. I couldn't hardly hear with all the noise. I blew it right front going into the third corner, and it just mangled the car up bad enough it put me out of the race.
Leroy Yarborough out of the race. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, well, that was the official word from Leroy on why he dropped out of the race, as we saw earlier with the right side of his car scraped up. I said earlier that Chris Economaki is here with me in the booth. Let's get a word from Chris now on a race that has a continually changing aspect.
Jim, getting back to Leroy for just a moment, his qualifying time of 18.802 seconds on this track reflected a speed of 119.681 miles an hour, by far and away the fastest speed ever achieved on a short track, a 5/8 mile track of this size. Really moving. Leroy's out, and as you said earlier, Richard Petty had his problems and has been knocked out of it too. And right now, Bobby Isaac, at number 71, is cruising along in front.
Okay, well, you mentioned that Richard Petty, who took over the lead and was cruising along, had his problems. Let's go back on videotape now and see in slow motion what happened to Richard. This was Richard between turns 3 and 4, and appeared, this is the first time we've seen it in slow motion, he hit the wall. Well, there you see it right now. Richard Petty grazing the wall, getting up too high with this very low guardrail that they have here. It's just about 2.5 feet high. It didn't look too serious, but as it turned out, he came in once, came in again. You can see the side of the car there is scraped up. So let's find out what really happened. Let's go down live to Dr. Don Tarr again.
Well, we was leading the race, everything going real good, and went in the third corner and blew a right front tire. And when it did, it messed up the A-frames, and we tried to fix it 2 or 3 times, but steering was messed up. We couldn't do nothing for it.
How's the heat out there, Richard?
Well, it was pretty hot, but it looked like it's cooled off a little bit now. But the sun was out, and it was real hot. But I think that we've been able to make it today because, like I say, the sun is going in and out, so I think it's been okay.
And it's hot here in the pits. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, thanks very much, Don and Richard Petty. So it's kind of interesting that both of the early leaders dropped out with identical things, both blue tires, both going into the third turn.
Tennessee, Jim. He won a 100-mile race over there for his 110th career victory. And then they had to tow overnight. Most of these fellows have towed from Maryville, which is just outside of Knoxville, a couple of 100 miles away, and are racing here today with little or no sleep. Bobby Isaac, our present leader, was second to Petty last night, and Dick Brooks was third.
Okay, well, there is the leader. Robert Vance Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina. He'll be 36 years old on August 1st this year. He came on the Grand National Trail in the year 1961 and had won only 4 races up to last season. Then suddenly, he exploded. He won 17 races last year. Here's some of the cars out of the race so far. Number 32, Dick Brooks, who was last year's Rookie of the Year, spun in the straightaway in the early going. James Hilton hit the wall twice, then went out. Leroy Yarborough, you know the story on. G.C. Spencer went out in the first lap. Benny Parsons lost a wheel, and the wheel went about a half a lap without him as he limped into the pits. Dick Bone did very well. He's a young driver from Oregon, but then dropped out. Ray Williams is out. Earl Brooks is out. So is Henley Gray, Charlie Roberts, John Halford, Ron Keselowski, Elmo Langley, Ed Negre, Richard Petty, of course, you know that story. May, Sears, Arrington, Don Gordon, Bill Dennis, Wendell Scott is out. Friday Hassler, who led at one point in the race and was a big favorite here, is out, and the other 2 drivers that you saw.
Ray Williams and Wendell Scott are back in as relief drivers for other drivers right now, Jim.
Okay, the live action continues, and we'll be back in a minute. Again, we're back at Nashville, Tennessee, and still, Bobby Isaac cruises along 1 lap in front of Bobby Allison in this 250-mile lap race. We're about halfway through the proceedings right now. We'd like to take one moment from the racing here to tell you something that's been a source of sadness to us, and and everybody in racing. When we did our last NASCAR race in Daytona Beach a few weeks ago, we told you that our associate on these broadcasts, Bob Montgomery, was in the hospital and was ill. Bob, in fact, had suffered 2 heart attacks. Not too long after that, he was released from the hospital and then had another heart attack which proved to be fatal. Bob Montgomery, at the age of 45, died just 8 days ago. I didn't really know him too well. He had worked with us just for, about 5 or 6 months before his death. One thing I will remember, however, was an occasion this spring in Darlington when it appeared that Richard Petty might have been seriously, very seriously injured in a crash. It was a difficult job for Bob to report from the track hospital to try to talk to Richard's father, his brother, and other members of his pit crew. On that occasion, I was struck by the fact that he did a real solid job of reporting, but also did it in a very human way. We will miss, and everyone in racing will miss, Bob Montgomery.
Oh, Bobby Isaac, number 71, tours the high banks. Cuckoo Marlin, a driver from Tennessee who qualified very fast, has just moved into the pits with a blown tire. And Isaac seems to be taking it a little bit easier now. He slowed his tempo. The field is thinned down considerably from the 36 cars that took the green flag earlier this afternoon. Isaac is going very well. His only competition now coming from Bobby Allison and Dave Marcus. Dodge cars own the top 4 positions. Cecil Gordon in a 68 Ford is 5th, so it looks like a big day for the Dodge boys. Isaac is driving the track very cautiously now. The clouds have come overhead, have obscured the sun, and it's a bit cooler than it was before. It was exceedingly hot and exceedingly humid, and this, of course, created to a high track temperature, 240-some degrees earlier today, or rather 140-some degrees earlier today, and close to 100 degrees ambient temperature. But the temperature now has cooled down, as has the pace out here on this Fairgrounds Speedway.
You know, Chris, it's kind of interesting to watch Bobby Allison, however. He's in second place, 1 lap plus behind the leader, Bobby Isaac. There was a time in this race when Bobby was 3, 4, maybe even 5 laps behind the early leader. He is driving a typical Allison race. He sits there, stays close enough to be threatening, but doesn't try to take the lead and doesn't try to go out in front. In other words, I don't think that Bobby Allison can be counted out of this race by a long shot right now, do you?
Well, no, he's only 1 lap behind, and that's a very close position on this track. Remember, the laps are being turned in less than 20 seconds, and the spread between second and third place is 6 laps. Marcus in third is 6 laps behind Allison, and 13 laps behind is Neil Castles in number 06. And Castles right now is going to the pits, and Isaac is on the clock right now, coming up on 10 seconds midway down the backstretch.
Yes, we're going to time this lap, and these lap times are very quick here, something probably just over 20 seconds. Well, now we've lost the clock on this one.
And that's Allison in number 22, heading for the pits with...
Well, there it is. Excuse me, Chris, but there's the final lap time on that, 21:53, and that works out to a speed of 104.5 miles per hour. Pretty fast on a 5/8 mile track.
You just saw a glimpse of Bobby Allison going to the pits with a left front tire flat. We have a unique situation here. Tire failures in racing are historically on the outside of the car, but today the left front tires seem to be going on the cars. There's Allison's car in the pits, and incidentally, the pits here are a unique situation. The 5/8 mile track has a little 5th mile oval inside of it, and the pits are on the 5th mile racetrack. The drivers make a sharp left turn past the start-finish line, and now Allison is coming out of the pits. He's going up the backstretch of the 5th mile track. He's going to make a 180-degree left turn right now and come out onto the straightaway of the 5/8 mile track. It's different than any other racetrack I've ever seen in Grand National competition.
These may come to be known as the carousel pits of Nashville. It's really like a little merry-go-round that they go on there. It doesn't seem to bother them at all, however. They've adjusted to it very quickly, even though nobody's ever seen it before. Isaac up on the high banking, and the beating that this gives to the suspension of the automobiles must be something that can only be imagined.
Drivers are saying that those 6- and 7-pound crash helmets are making their heads loll over on their right shoulder and straining the left side neck muscles. Incidentally, that pit stop that Bobby Allison just made in car number 22, he did not lose second place. Remember now, he has 6 laps over Dave Marcus at number 30, and now has perhaps 5 or maybe 4.
However, he has lost ground on this man, on car number 71, Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina, the leader. 35-year-old race driver, father of 3 children named Randy, Robin, and Rhonda. The race goes on, and we'll return in another minute to Nashville. We're back again, live and in color from Nashville, Tennessee. The leader, Bobby Isaac, made a routine pit stop while we were away for gas and so forth. However, it was a routine stop that cost him 2 laps of his lead to Bobby Allison. He now leads Bobby Allison just by 2, but now he passes Bobby because Bobby himself is coming into the pits at this moment. So, Isaac had lost 2 laps, but it's now necessary for Allison to come into the pits, and he'll probably get at least that many back again. They're bringing out tires for Allison's car. Looks like they're going to change a couple on the right side. There's the leader on the racetrack, Bobby Isaac.
This is a significant day for Bobby Isaac, Jim. He's battling for the national championship with James Hilton, who a few weeks ago pulled abreast of Isaac in a tie, and after last night's events, they were very close, 10 points apart, and now this will be a big boost for Isaac because Hilton went out early, and Isaac will take the lead for the national standings in this race.
Okay, a little bit earlier today, Dr. Don Tarr, working down in the pits for us, talked to Bobby Isaac. Let's hear what they had to say.
Here today, Bobby. Is this like Charlotte? Is this like the Talladega track? What are you expecting as far as tires and tire wear concerned and so forth?
Well, heat-wise, it's going to be hot, but I couldn't say about tires because they've come in here and put up about a 36-degree bank on a 5/8 of a mile speedway, which, you know, nobody has never run on. And Goodyear don't even, have never even run any tests on a racetrack, I guess, to come up with a good tire. So we're just going with the tire that we ran at Bristol and hoping that it'll last.
Conservative running, then, is going to be the story today. Is that
Bank tire, whatever bank low, because this is a 250-mile race, and it don't pay good enough to be a 250-mile race, so I don't see why I should go out and tear the equipment up that bad. I'll just lay back and run kind of like it pays, kind of slow and easy.
right? Now, Bobby, what happens to the track after 2 hours, let's say, when 30 cars have been running around here at 120 miles an hour? Is it liable to tear the track up in heat like this?
Well, no, it won't tear it. So much that it would be kind of hard to tear up. This is probably the biggest bike that we run on anywhere in the racing circuit, and I don't see how that any cars could tear it up. It might tear the cars up because it is rough in 1 and 2, but not the track.
Okay, those were the words of Bobby Isaac a little bit earlier today. A yellow flag has come out, and I'm trying to see why. Somebody must have dropped something.
Jim, up there in the corner. He spun coming off, or going into turn 4. He's down on the apron, and it's brought out the yellow, one of the few yellow flags of the day.
Yeah, no accident. Cuckoo Marlin just spinning down into the red clay of the infield.
Oops, it's not Cuckoo, I'm sorry. It's number 77.
77. That's somebody else. 77 is, in fact, John Kenny of Pequasin, Virginia, in his 68 Ford. There you see him. A little hard to see the number from this angle, as you can see. But that's number 77, John Kenny of Virginia, who is out of the going, and I believe there are just now about 11 cars left. And there's the leader into the pits again, under the yellow, Bobby Isaac. Let's see what it's going to be for this time. He was just in a couple of minutes ago.
You know, Jim, the race at Maryville, Tennessee last night deprived almost all of the drivers in today's field of a lot of sleep. We checked with them before the race. Richard Petty had 5 hours sleep. Isaac had 3 hours, as did Dick Brooks. James Hilton had 2 hours. But Friday Hassler, who was a leader a while ago, had no sleep, as did many of the other drivers who raced last night and made the long tow over here.
Okay. Well, there is the leader, Bobby Isaac, waiting to go out, just like the rest of us at a stop signal. And he is now allowed to go out onto the racetrack again. Isaac in car number 71, as the yellow flag is still out here. He is a comfortable leader over second place Bobby Allison. We're talking about that point battle that's been going on all this season between James Hilton and Bobby Isaac. Well, James Hilton has been leading in that battle this week, 2,231 points to 2,219 for Bobby Isaac. However, these are the standings before last night's race in Maryville, and Bobby Isaac gained 2 points last night, so he was actually 10 points behind Hilton going into today's race. James Hilton dropped out after hitting the wall twice in the very early going here today. Isaac is still running, so almost certainly he will take the lead in this season-long battle. These points are awarded in each of the races on the NASCAR Trail. It's a year-long series, and you have to run in pretty much all of the races to win that Grand National title. Now, some drivers prefer just to run in the big ones for the big money, like Pete Hamilton. Pete you would not find in the point standings any place, but he's still the leading money winner of the year so far.
It's a tough circuit. There's some 52 races a year on the NASCAR Grand National Circuit, and they spread the entire United States from California to Florida. One of Isaac's radiator strap brackets has broken, and apparently he'll be making another stop while the yellow flag is out. The reason for the installment stops is so that the pace car in the field does not go by, putting you a lap behind. The whole philosophy of these repeated pit stops, rather than doing all the work in one stop, is to stay in the same lap without losing any appreciable ground, because once you pull out of the pit, you can speed up and tack on the tail end, and your loss is only measured in a few yards. So if Isaac's strap was not fixed on that time round, we could expect him to stop once again.
We've mentioned that there are so many of these NASCAR races during the course of a season, and we'd like to remind those of you in different areas when NASCAR is coming your way, not when they'll be on television in this instance, but when you can see these cars in person. For example, the Dixie 500 in Atlanta is coming up on August the 2nd. The Motor State 500 in Irish Hills, Michigan on August 16th. The Talladega 500 at Talladega, Alabama, the big track down there, on August 23rd. And the Southern 500, as they call it, the daddy of them all, down in Darlington, South Carolina, on Labor Day. Those are some of the NASCAR races coming up in the near future. 300 laps have now been run. 420 is the scheduled distance of the race. We'll be back in a minute with the live action in Tennessee. Again, we're back live where the yellow flag is still out in Nashville, Tennessee. The leader in this race is Bobby Isaac, remember. He is either 3 or 4 laps ahead of Bobby Allison. The scorers are checking on that right now. In third place is Dave Marcus, 6 laps behind in car number 30. In fourth place, number 06, Neil Castles of Charlotte, North Carolina. He's 15 laps behind. And in fifth place, number 24, Cecil Gordon of Arden, North Carolina, is 19 laps behind. We said the yellow is still out as they clean up debris from the track down around the fourth turn here. A reminder that next Saturday, by the way, ABC's Wide World of Sports will be preempted in order that we can bring you exclusive color coverage of the $250,000 Westchester Golf Classic. That'll be live from the Westchester Country Club in Harrison, New York. All the top golfers, including Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, and Billy Casper, of course, will be competing for the first place money of $50,000. That's next Saturday, 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And, of course, we'll have Sunday coverage there, too, but we're just pointing out here that Wide World will be preempted for that next Saturday. Other golf coming up during the month of August. Keep posted on that. The PGA from Tulsa in the middle of the month, and towards the end of August, the Dow Jones from Upper Montclair, New Jersey, which will be the new world's richest golf tournament. $300,000 in prize money and $60,000 first prize. By the way, on that interview, Bobby Isaac seemed to be a little bit critical of the prize money here. Did you notice that, Chris? He said that it doesn't pay like a 250-mile race should. You know what he meant by that?
Well, of course, the first prize here is going to be something around $3,000, depending on what accessories he uses on that car. Isaac was not only critical of the money, he was critical of the track, which is an interesting point because he's out front now and he seems to have figured out whatever the problems were. The race at Maryville, Tennessee last night was originally scheduled for Thursday night, and yesterday was scheduled for practice because this is a new track with steeply banked turns, the steepest in the world, as you said earlier, Jim, and it requires a certain chassis setting. And after that all-night tow from Knoxville here, the drivers had to unload starting at 9 o'clock this morning, and they've been working all day long trying to tune their chassis for the unique requirements that this track presents. In the early going, the cars were bottoming going into turn 1. The tremendous jump in inclination was sending the chassis right down, and some of the cars were actually scraping the track. We had oil pans break in the early going, and the mechanics really had a tough job getting these cars set up for this racetrack. But Isaac has an extensive factory stable. Harry Hyde is his mechanic, and it's said that they have 7 cars back in their K&K Insurance garage. And the car he's driving today is not the one he used to finish second to Richard Petty with last night. He said he didn't like the track because it was so high. He didn't like it because it was too narrow, but he's out front. I wonder what his answers would be to those same questions should he win today.
Everybody seems to like it if they win. The scorers have gotten straightened out here. They say that Bobby Isaac is 2 laps ahead of Bobby Allison. However, he's right behind Bobby Allison as they continue under the yellow, and if he can pass him when the green flag comes out, he will then have 3 laps on him.
And there's 3 right now.
Yep. Bobby Allison into the pits. Into the pits, under the yellow. Taking on some more fuel. And that's all he wanted, was just a little more gas. Trying to figure out this pit stop situation could be critical here towards the end.
I think that the race could very well be won or lost by these pit members. Now, this is a break for Allison. He, in a sense, lost a lap, but he was about to have lost it anyway.
Right.
And he's only going to be a few car lengths behind Isaac. And when the green flag waves once again.
A few car lengths plus 3 laps. Remember, Isaac is 3 laps plus two probably ahead of Allison. There's the leader. They continue under the yellow. It's taken them a long time to get the debris and the oil cleaned up here.
That's right. There were 36 cars when the green flag waved. We only have 11 on the racetrack now behind the safety car. The attrition rate has been exceptionally high. The tires have had a tough day. The reason for that being the track is new, green in racing terminology, and when an asphalt is brand new, it generates a lot of heat. It requires some time to cure and become raceable at cool temperatures. So the boys have popped a lot of tires out here and grazed the wall as well in many instances.
Speaking of green, here comes the green flag. They're racing again in Nashville. Bobby Isaac, the leader, by 3 laps over Bobby Allison. Allison at this point about 50 yards behind him, plus those 3 laps. Isaac winging out in front and looking in just beautiful shape. However, we've seen many times, go take a look at the relationship. There is Isaac going out the right-hand side of your screen, right there. Now watch the gold car coming through. There is Bobby Allison, who is in 2nd place by that much, remember, and 3 laps. I started to say that we've seen cars in beautiful shape going into the last 50 laps or so many times. In fact, the last race we did down at Daytona, you'll remember that David Pearson, with only 6 laps to go, appeared to have no problems at all when suddenly a tire blew on him. So a good many changes could take place here before the finish of this race. Isaac, at the moment, however, is the leader, the man who is also going to be leading at the end of this day for the NASCAR Grand National Point Championship of this year, 1970.
Dodge cars, Jim, are in the first 4 positions, and a 1968 Ford, rather old by Grand National standards, lies in 5th place. But the surprise car of the meeting was that old Chevelle driven by Friday Hassler that seemed to have this track figured out. Hassler's from Chattanooga and set a brisk pace out in front until mechanical troubles knocked him out.
Now, there were a couple of moments when it looked like home state favorites here might give a good account of themselves. The first came during qualifying when Cuckoo Marlin, wonderful name, isn't it? Cuckoo, who is from here in Nashville and who, as a matter of fact, is a politician who's running for the legislature, qualified about 5th fastest, which he doesn't normally do. However, he dropped that pretty early in the race. Then it was Friday Hassler from Chattanooga, as Chris indicated, who took the lead.
Jim, we just noticed that Dave Marcus unlapped himself by 1 lap on Bobby Isaac, and this could indicate that Isaac is in a little bit of trouble. He doesn't have that much of a cushion where he's going to let somebody in 3rd place by.
Okay, well, the leader still is Bobby Isaac, but remember, Bobby Allison in 2nd place is right there, 3 laps and a little bit more behind the leader. However, laps here don't mean what they mean at Daytona. Remember, this track is only 5/8 of a mile in circumference. So let's go back in time a little bit to when Don Tarr talked to Bobby Allison before the race began today and see what Bobby had to say.
You have a 35-degree bank here in this track on a 5/8 of a mile, and Talladega we have a 33-degree bank. Do you get the same type of sensation running through the turns at this track in Nashville as you do down at Talladega?
Well, I would say not really, Don. Of course, you've run at Talladega, and you know that down there that even though we did have some early problem with some bumps were pavement bumps. You know, in other words, you go over a bump and then you travel several hundred feet on good pavement. And here, the real high bank, instead of just holding the car where you can go fast speeds, it's kind of like running in a motorcycle barrel. You know, you just run up against the wall and it turns you and you go the other way.
Okay, well, those were the pre-race comments of Bobby Allison played against the live picture of Bobby right now gaining on the leader, Bobby Isaac. Now, whether he is actually going that much faster than Isaac or whether Isaac has decided to cool it just a little bit in these closing laps on a hot day is the question.
Well, there's more pit stops coming up, Jim, and I'm inclined to think Isaac's having trouble. There goes Allison in number 22, putting himself now 2 laps behind Bobby Isaac as we come closer and closer to the checkered flag in this Nashville 420.
It does make you begin to wonder whether Bobby Isaac could be having some problem inside that racing stock car of his. Allison passed him very easily, and what we said could mean one of two things. Either that Isaac is slowing down intentionally or that he's slowing down unintentionally. In either event, he is going slower than he was.
That's the story of racing, and one never really knows until it's all over.
Wouldn't it seem unlikely, Chris, however, that he would actually give away a full lap by letting Bobby pass him like that?
I have to agree with you. It is highly unlikely that we allow him to gain a lap on. The track is almost free of traffic now, only 11 cars on it. He can pick his groove. He doesn't have to weave his way through. He can go very fast now if he wants to. And I cannot imagine Bobby Isaac, who's known as a Charger, just taking it easy at this late hour with Allison, whose car seems to be extremely healthy, however, making pit stops a little more frequently. It may be that Isaac is trying to save his tires and get through to the checkered flag with one less pit stop than the others might perhaps have to make.
Well, these are the things we'll be finding out here as the race proceeds live to its finish. 420-lap or 250-mile race on this 5/8 of a mile track. Highest banking in the world in Nashville, Tennessee. It is so hot, and yet the enthusiasm for racing in this town is almost unbelievable. More, I think, than almost any place I've seen. The people in the general admission seats were standing in line for about a quarter of a mile at 8:30 this morning. They then came in and sat in a broiling sun, temperature about 97 or 98 and the humidity to match, until the race started at 2:30. Boy, that's dedication.
The entire grandstand was sold out before business closed yesterday.
Well, here is a look at the crowd of approximately 20,000 people gathered here in Nashville at this 5/8 of a mile racetrack. As we said, this is the big day of the racing year. They have 52 races a year here. In fact, they tell us that they drew more paid admissions here last year than they did on the big track at Daytona. The main reason being that they have so many races here. But this is the only day of the year when they have the big NASCAR stars. We'll be back in a minute with more live racing. We return live to the Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee. The race goes on. Bobby Isaac is the leader by 2 laps and almost another full lap over Bobby Allison. That's according to the official NASCAR scoring system. Earlier in the day, before we came on the air, they had a good many problems with the scoring. So it's always conceivable that there could be some changes as time goes by. At the moment, however, things seem to have settled down in that department. As we say, Isaac officially is 2 laps and almost another full lap ahead of Bobby Allison, with Dave Marcus in 3rd place, 6 laps back. Neil Castles in 4th place, 15 laps back, and Cecil Gordon 5th, 19 laps back. And listening to those names, you can tell that aside from Isaac and Allison, just about all the really big names in this sport have dropped by the wayside. Leroy Yarborough and Richard Petty and James Hilton.
Benny Parsons has gone out. Jim, maybe Isaac's strategy here, he is not allowing Allison to pull away. By doing this, he can stay on Allison's back bumper and let Allison set the pace, and he rides with it. Goes faster if he has to, or goes slower if he wants to, and that way keeps the opposition right in sight without overstraining his car.
Here's a look at the 3rd place car, number 30, driven by Dave Marcus, one of the few Northerners on the NASCAR tour. Dave from Wisconsin has been driving very well all this season, and he's certainly a fellow to watch for the future.
You know, last Sunday, when Bobby Allison got affected by the heat of Bristol, Tennessee, Marcus took over for him and finished the car 2 laps ahead of the field to win the race. And he went to victory lane, and he didn't know what to do. Allison came in and got a kiss from the beauty queen, and Marcus was asking what should he do in there, and he missed his first kiss.
Well, Dave just came on the NASCAR trail 2 years ago, in 1968. He has yet to win his first big one, but he's finished in the top 5 3 times and in the top 10 12 times. His best finish was a 3rd at Hampton, Virginia. That's the best finish in his NASCAR career, and he's running 3rd right now, so it could be his big day.
He's one of the up-and-coming independents. Out of Wisconsin, the tracks up there train great chassis mechanics, and this is the kind of a track where the chassis is important, or perhaps more important than a powerful engine. And Marcus knows how to fix the car to work on a track like this.
Remember now that this is the 2nd place car you're looking at, although on the track he is just a few feet ahead of the 1st place car. So he's almost 3 laps behind. Again, we remind you, however, that laps here don't mean what they mean, let's say, on the 2.5-mile tri-oval down at Daytona, Florida. This is only a 5/8 of a mile track, so you can lose 2 laps if you have to make an extra pit stop very quickly. We're going to try to get a lap time again on Bobby Isaacs to see exactly how much he has slowed down, if in fact he has slowed down. Last time we got him, it was somewhere about 104.5 miles an hour. It should take him just 21, 22 seconds to go around here. Here he comes, coming out of turn 4 already. And there, 21.19. He's still going fast. That's over 106 miles an hour. He's going faster, in fact, than he was the last time we clocked him.
Yeah, but you remember, Jim, that his lap time in qualifying was 18.903, considerably faster. So he is really taking it easy in this one today. Oops, and Marcus. Dave Marcus is in trouble on the back stretch. We'll get a shot of that in a moment. Number 30 on the back straightaway, the Dodge.
Number 30 car in third place is now probably out of the race. There you see him pulling down into the red clay.
That's the driver from Wisconsin. He wrapped the backstretch wall coming off in that Dodge. A tough break for that fellow from Wisconsin.
That puts Neil Castles in car number 06 in third place in the race right now. Dave Marcus moving around inside the automobile. Hasn't gotten out yet, but he looks like he's on his way, taking his helmet off. Apparently not injured.
$1,110, or about $1,200 would be Marcus's pay had he stayed where he was, and now he gets down into the $500 category with this unfortunate incident. He's okay.
Well, we're trying to make sure of that right now because they seem to be summoning more assistance of some kind, and I don't think Dave has gotten out of the car yet. I wonder if he's just exhausted sitting in there.
You know, it's a unique situation, Jim, that for the next 9 laps he'll still be third. If a rainstorm should stop the race right now, he would be credited with third place.
I think perhaps they've called for the ambulance. It is now preparing to go out on the racetrack. They had already called for the tow trucks, and now you see them waving with some urgency. It may be plain old heat prostration. There is the ambulance on the racetrack. He'll have to go all the way around through turns 1 and 2, the backstretch, and then go down into the infield to pick up Dave Marcus. As we said, when he first stopped, you could see him moving around inside the car. I thought I saw him start to take his helmet off, but then suddenly they started calling for help.
I watched him loosen his shoulder harness. He threw them back over his shoulder before someone moved in there, which prompted me to say he was okay. But as you say, this oppressive heat today is very tough on these drivers. One driver, Ed Negre, who started the race, he's a car owner, he's a driver, and he's a chief mechanic and has no help, had not been to bed for 2 nights prior to the start of today's race. So it's been a strenuous day. Marcus told me before the race that he got just 3 hours sleep. 3 hours sleep before the contest began today.
Yeah, I think we should explain one apparently grisly detail, and that is that the ambulance's funeral home. Dave Marcus is far from having passed away. Just to make that thing very clear, Dave is apparently either injured or suffering from heat prostration. The funeral home here has provided the ambulance service for the racetrack.
The accident, incidentally, was a wall-smacking incident coming off of turn 1. He hit the cement wall on the outside of the track and damaged the right side of the car and came to a stop in the turn between turns 3 and 4 at the bottom of the track. It was a 1-car episode. However, the car is quite seriously damaged, so he did give it a good hard wallop coming off of turn 1. And that was the area that Leroy Yarborough said was the tough one to negotiate at high speed. The drivers are taking advantage of the yellow flag period to make their pit stops and topping off with fuel and taking on whatever other material they may need. Right now, Bobby Allison is in.
Well, right now, we're still looking at this scene, and I still don't see Dave Marcus. You know, earlier today, I was talking to Benny Parsons, one of the other drivers, and I asked him what form this fatigue takes out there. I said, do you get sick in your stomach or dizzy or what? He said, no, more often it would be something like just coming off a turn and suddenly realizing that your arms just didn't have the strength to turn that wheel. That could have been what happened to Dave Marcus. They have now put him on the stretcher into the ambulance. No injuries that can be spotted at all from here. And if we had to guess right now, we'd have to guess heat exhaustion, but that's a pure guess. We'll try to find out as soon as we can what the details are. The yellow flag is still out at Nashville, Tennessee. There's more racing to come, and we'll return for it in another minute. You're taking a look at the city of Nashville, Tennessee. They call it the Music City, famous for the sound, the Nashville sound in country and western music. It is used not only by country and western stars now, but all top recording artists on some occasions. And there you see the roller coaster at the State Fairgrounds here. It's kind of an amusement park, and there you see the racetrack. From the city to the roller coaster to the racetrack, and this racetrack is something like a roller coaster in its own right, with these 35-degree bank turns. But instead of being in a nice, safe roller coaster car with guardrails and things, you're in an automobile racing car. A reminder here as we proceed under the yellow flag that live from Soldier Field in Chicago, the College All-Star Football game on Friday, July 31st at 9:30 Eastern Daylight Time. You'll see the Kansas City Chiefs, winners of the Super Bowl, take on the best seniors of the 1969 college football season, men like Mike Reed of Penn State, Mike McCoy of Notre Dame, quarterback Mike Phipps of Purdue. Don't forget that's Friday, next Friday, July 31st, live at 9:30 Eastern Daylight Time on ABC on Friday night next.
Okay, Jim, here's the word from the track doctor. It was heat exhaustion, as you had surmised, for Dave Marcus, the driver of car number 30 from West Salem, Wisconsin, a northern boy not used to this southern climb. We might add that before the race, Cecil Gordon, who is now in 4th place, had no sleep last night, and in qualifying, a 2-lap run around the track, said that he got dizzy from the heat. And right now, Cecil Gordon is in 4th place in car number 24.
So this business of heat exhaustion could still be very significant here. But now we get another report from someone down at the scene. They said Dave Marcus said that when he hit the wall, he thinks he might have broken a couple of ribs. But I guess the basic thing is heat exhaustion.
He hit it hard enough to have done that.
346 laps have now gone by, and remember, it's a scheduled 420-lap race. Bobby Allison has just made another quick pit stop under the yellow.
Without losing a lap.
Could be that this is the lull before the storm. This is where Marcus spun. You see the sand that they put down there on the racetrack, that yellow appearing substance at the bottom of your screen? Well, that's where he hit the wall right there. This fairly low retaining wall, which, however, seems to have been working pretty well so far today.
That's right, Jim. Apparently when he hit the fence, something broke that allowed fluid of one sort or another, oil, gas, or perhaps water, to get on the track, and that's why the yellow has prevailed as long as it has, because this absorbent powder has to be put on these spots to make a safe raceway.
Well, they're preparing the racetrack for the final climactic laps here in Nashville. There are the standings at the moment. Bobby Isaac the leader, Bobby Allison second, and Neil Castles third. We'll be back in a minute. We're back again in Nashville where the yellow flag is still out. Looks like we might have a green there for a moment, but the yellow flag is out as Bobby Isaac leads the field. The official NASCAR scores tell us by 2 laps at this moment over Bobby Allison. However, there seems to be some question. He was stopped by Johnny Bruner Sr., the chief steward here, and may have been penalized a lap. And he's back in the pits again right now. Bobby Allison has pitted a number of times under the yellow, but has not lost a lap. He's been topping off fuel and so forth. There's no fuel this time, and I wonder if he might be having a problem.
Well, he's got a pit manager, Mario Rossi, who's from the north. It's a rarity here in NASCAR Grand National Racing. Mario Rossi, whose strategy oftentimes differs from his southern brethren. There was a quick pit stop. They got under the car. They may have changed the chassis setting just a little bit to give them perhaps a better bite on the racetrack.
And they have to do these things in something under 30 seconds in order to get the car back out on the racetrack again before the rest of the field comes around. And now they say that Bobby Allison did lose 1 lap when Johnny Bruner held him up for a moment. So it's now a 3-lap lead for Bobby Isaac. 3 laps on a 5/8 of a mile track.
You know, it's been a big year for both Allison and Isaac financially, Jim. Allison's second in the money-winning standings. Pete Hamilton, who's here but not racing today, is tops at $93,020. But Allison has won $82,085 this year. Petty is third at $74,295. And Isaac, with his second-place finish last night at Maryville, has won $67,045. And should he win here today, his winnings for the season will push him over $70,000, with some of the big money races yet to come.
Laps under the yellow count, of course, and there are now less than 70 to go in this race. They've just been given 1 more lap under the yellow. 1 lap. Next week, Wide World will be preempted. Remember, we'll all be at the Westchester Country Club in Harrison, New York for the big Westchester Golf Classic. $250,000 in prize money, $50,000 first prize. Then in the month of August, the PGA from Tulsa and the Dow Jones with $300,000 in prize money from Upper Montclair, New Jersey. But right now, it's racing, coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. The red car, the high one there. Number 71 is Bobby Isaac, the leader in the race. The green flag is out, and here they go.
9, Jim. 9 cars out on the racetrack.
You know, I've often thought when we're at one of these grueling little NASCAR tracks like this one on a hot day in the South, or when we've been to the Grand Prix of Monaco, where the situation is somewhat the same for different reasons, that someday we're going to do a race where nobody's going to finish. Someday it has to happen.
I hope that doesn't happen today. We've got a good one going now with Isaac trying to get a lap back from Allison. There's only 2 laps now separating these 2 drivers. It's the second-place driver, Bobby Allison, coming down just ahead of leader Bobby Isaac and number 71, both driving 1969 Dodges.
Okay, but should number 71 there pass 22, it will again be 3 laps for the lead. So this is pretty much the way Isaac was playing Bobby Allison before the yellow flag came out this last time on Dave Marcus's crash into the wall. Just keeping him in sight, staying right behind him, holding him where he wants him. A report from the pits now from Dr. Don Tarr.
Very significant thing. Bobby Isaac, who was 5 laps down earlier in the race, I went over to his pit crew and I talked to Harry Hyde and I asked him, Harry, what's the matter with Bobby? Is he having problems? And Harry said, no, Don, he's cooling it. He says, we expect everybody else to have their problems. We're going to cool it and we're going to come out on top. That's it from the pits, Jim.
Okay, well, there you had the word from Dr. Don Tarr, who, if you just joined us recently, we would remind you, is a race driver, a NASCAR race driver himself, and a medical doctor from Miami. He normally would be driving. He's not driving today, so we've availed ourselves of his services as an expert down in the pits. Dr. Tarr was the gentleman whom we had a microphone on in his race car at Daytona a few weeks ago, you may remember. That worked out very well that day.
The radiator strap earlier in the going, Jim, Bobby Isaac has really had a trouble-free day, making pit stops on schedule, taking advantage of the yellow flag whenever he could, and now enjoys a 2 9/10 lap lead over Bobby Allison.
And remember that Dave Marcus, who was third, is now out of it. He's on his way to the hospital. And the further report on Dave was that when in the ambulance, he was feeling fine. He said heat exhaustion wearing off a little bit apparently already, but he had sore ribs. Crowd of better than 20,000 looking on here on this hot, muggy afternoon. The sun was in for a while, then came out again. It's still very, very hot and muggy. Typical Tennessee July day. It's hot. There you see the rest of the fairgrounds and the amusement park in the background, and some of the Tennessee farmland that surrounds us. You're looking from our crane camera. Cameraman about 150 feet in the air, dangling from the end of a crane. Getting a very good view of the racetrack, however.
Well, for the first time since we came on, Jim, the cloud cover has broken, and that's the Tennessee sun once again beats down on the racetrack and those bleacher people, customers in the front of the grandstand. Allison right now is trying to gain some ground on Isaac. He's pulling away and has picked up almost a straightaway on him.
But Bobby still is apparently cooling it. At least that's what the members of his pit crew told Don Tarr, because he is not chasing Bobby Allison with too much verve at the moment. Now, although it looks like maybe he wants to close it up a bit. Remember, he has a 2-lap and almost another lap lead on Bobby Allison. Allison would sure like to get that down to 1. Were he able to do that, he'd have a real good shot at a pit stop situation, giving him the final lap that he needs, or almost anything. So Isaac will certainly be trying to prevent Allison from gaining another full lap. Allison at the moment just holding his now increased margin over Isaac, but not moving in a way anymore. The speeds here on this 5/8 of a mile track, remarkable, about 105, 106 miles an hour every time we clock the leader. And Bobby Isaac, his left hand on the top of the steering wheel, continues to lead as he tours this 35-degree bank track at Nashville. We'll be back in a minute. The Tennessee sun continues to broil down on the racetrack at Nashville, and these are all the cars that are left in the race. This is not the order of the standings, but this is the only ones left. Cuckoo Marlin, the hometown favorite and politician and farmer, Cecil Gordon, Ben Arnold, Eddie Yarborough, no relation either to Leroy, who went out earlier in this race, or to Cale, who wasn't here today, Jabe Thomas, J.D. McDuffie, Neil Castle, Bobby Isaac, the leader, and Bobby Allison, who is in second place. The only two really big-name drivers left in the competition here, Isaac and Allison. Isaac, the leader, Allison 2 laps down, remember, and trying to take away some of that ground between him and Bobby Isaac at the moment. Third place is Neil Castle, who is 21 laps behind. Fourth place, Cecil Gordon, is 23 laps back. In fifth place is Cuckoo Marlin in car number 07. He's 27 laps behind, with Ray Williams driving in relief now, is Chris. Ray Williams in relief of Cecil Gordon, who is in fourth place. In sixth place, J.D. McDuffie in car number 70. In seventh place, number 76, Ben Arnold. And Cuckoo Marlin has decided to come into the pits at the moment, but there is the leader, Bobby Isaac. Isaac, remember, at the end of this day, will be the point leader in the Grand National season-long championship chase. And there is Bobby Allison, still trying to move it out on Bobby Isaac, but I think Isaac's just trying to keep him in sight. That's the way it looks. There's relationship. There is Isaac. You see how far he is behind Allison. But remember, he is the leader. We're just trying to indicate to you how Bobby Allison is trying to pull away from Isaac, conceivably to unlap himself yet another lap and be only 1 lap plus behind. So far, though, Isaac, it looks like, is just sitting there, keeping him in his sights.
You know, the Music City has sent its representatives to the track, Jim. Bobby Goldsboro is an interested pit visitor, as is Marty Robbins, who, until a heart attack, used to drive occasionally on the NASCAR Grand American Circuit, which incidentally is showing tonight in Charleston, West Virginia.
Okay, well, at the moment, this race is somewhat reminiscent of the one we had at Daytona a few weeks ago, where David Pearson appeared to be cruising in just as Bobby Isaac did. It turned out that way on that occasion, but sure, right now, Bobby Isaac couldn't appear to be in better shape. The car looks just fine. Word from his pits is that Bobby himself is not too tired, although he sure has to be plenty tired. Running down the standing a little bit further, in 8th place, number 25, Jabe Thomas. Gwendolyn in relief.
Wendell Scott, the color driver, Jim, is handling the car for Jabe Thomas right now, who was bitten by the heat a little bit earlier.
And 03 is 9th. That's Eddie Yarborough, who we said is no relation to the other Yarboroughs, either Leroy or Cale. The heat inside these automobiles has to be somewhere over 150 degrees today. And they've been out there a long time. Can you imagine making 1,680 turns? That's what they're doing. 4 turns on the track, and they negotiated 420 times before it's all over.
It's not done ordinarily in the afternoon, Jim, in the summertime here in Nashville, Tennessee, because the track is used primarily at night, and it's not the big one that's used at night, but rather the little one that we see being used today as a pit area. If they're going to use this big track for night racing now that it's just completed, this incidentally is the very first race ever held on this new super high bank 5/8 mile track. Remember, the turns bank an unbelievable 35 degrees and holding up very well under this brutal heat. Some predicted that the asphalt might move, new asphalt, like a rug, but that has not happened, and the surface has held up wonderfully well today.
Bobby Allison continues to move out that margin on Bobby Isaac a little bit. He's about, he's better than a third of a lap ahead of Bobby on the racetrack right now. About 2 2/3 laps behind, actually.
The yellow flag now, Jim, would move Allison right up behind him and set the stage for a drive to the checker that could be anyone's race.
Again, we're taking a lap timing on the leader, Bobby Isaac. See if his speed is down significantly. He's been going 105, 106 miles an hour when we've timed him before. Here he comes on these very quick laps on this short course. 20.06, he hasn't slowed down at all. In fact, he is now up almost to 112 miles an hour. They're really moving out there. Of course, there's little or no traffic now, and they can go as fast as they want. Bobby Isaac. And again, we'll be back in a minute. Only 43 laps remain in this 420-lap race at Nashville, Tennessee, the Fairgrounds Speedway. And Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina, continues to cruise out in front, about 2.5 laps in front of Bobby Allison. They are short laps here, remember, but he still has what could only be described as a comfortable lead. Allison continues to move a little bit further out in front of Isaac, but not by very much. He's pulling away from him at much too slow a pace to ever catch him just by normal racing here. He's got to hope for some kind of a break. We had a timing on Isaac about 111.5 miles an hour, which is very fast. You just get another lap time?
Jim, we just took a clocking on Bobby Allison, who turned the track in exactly 20.5 seconds. On the very same lap, Isaac turned in 21.5 seconds. So Allison turned the track a full second faster last time around than Isaac. I think Bobby is like a track star starting his kick.
It could be, and that, as we say, is tremendous speed, and obviously Isaac does not feel that he is able to cool it to any significant extent. In fact, he is going about 6 miles an hour faster now than he was an hour ago.
And this thanks to Bobby Allison.
Okay, well, here is Allison. We're going to get a visual lap timing on him right now this time. See exactly how fast he's going. He's moving all right, and this, as I said earlier, is a traditional Bobby Allison drive. He likes to hang back. He likes to cool it for a long while in these races, particularly in this kind of weather, and then put on a closing spurt. Both he and his brother Donnie have run a good many races that way. In fact, Donnie won the last one we did. 20.79 this time is 108.173 miles per hour. A little bit slower, but still real good going.
Well, the drivers, in a sense, have a clear track with only 9 cars on this 5/8 mile raceway. The traffic is really not bothering them from a lap speed standpoint.
Imagine that, 36 cars barreled into that first turn when the race started. And now there are only 9, and a couple of those are showing signs of old age and fatigue.
The drivers that raced last night at Maryville, Jim, and raced here today say they're going to drive over to Atlanta tonight and sleep until qualifying for the Atlanta 500 begins on Thursday.
Boy, I'll bet they will. We might explain that the reason they raced last night, ordinarily they wouldn't have done it, but there was a race scheduled in Maryville, Tennessee, about 220 miles from here for Thursday night. It rained over there, so it was postponed until last night. So race they did, all of them except Leroy Yarborough, who came here early. He doesn't normally drive on a smaller track. Came here early in practice yesterday. They all raced last night, then had to drive 220 miles to here, and then start setting up their cars, getting ready for practice and qualifying in a race.
Another driver who passed up the Maryville race was Cuckoo Marlin. There's none of his constituents over there, Jim.
That's right, the local politician. Cuckoo told us, by the way, as we've often wondered, so we finally asked why in the world a man would be called Cuckoo. And he said when he's a little boy, his name is Clifton Marlin. And he said when I was a little boy, I couldn't say it, so I'd say Cuckoo, and it stuck. There's Cuckoo right now in car number 07. His nickname not descriptive at all. Quite an intelligent man, as we say. He's running for public office and is a farmer, runs that business and his racetrack business, and still has time, as we say, to bid for public service in Tennessee.
Now there's
a little bit of smoke for Cuckoo.
Jim, his left front tire in the corner, if we stay on this shot, perhaps we can see it. This is an indication why the left front tires are going. It's scuffing off. There's smoke coming from his tires. He's blistering those tires and could blow one any moment. Now, I don't know whether he's aware of this situation, but he's treading right now on thin ice with those tires. There's smoke coming off the left front tire on the number 07 car handled by Tennessee's own Cuckoo Marlin.
Well, it might be worth watching Cuckoo here for a little bit because the battle up front remains the same. Bobby Isaac about 2.5 laps in front of Bobby Allison. 20 laps to go in the race.
It looks a little bit surprising to me that his pit crew hasn't slowed him down with that smoke showing from the left front wheel in the bank turns here.
Doesn't look quite as bad now as it did a couple of laps ago. Well, it's still there, though.
Depends on the line he takes and how sharp his exit is made.
There goes Allison, getting ready to pass Cuckoo.
Keep your fingers crossed that the tire doesn't go while Allison is alongside of him.
Yep, he got by safely. Clifton Cuckoo Marlin continues, and there's the leader, Bobby Isaac. Good speed shot. You can get an idea of exactly how fast they're going on this short racetrack. It's really tremendous to be able to race under racing conditions at 112 miles an hour on a 5/8 of a mile track. Okay, we'll be coming back and coming up to the finish very shortly here in Nashville, so let's go away for just another minute. Here's Bobby Isaac with 14 laps left to go in this 250-mile race in Nashville, Tennessee. He is the leader by 2.5 laps over Bobby Allison. In the pits is Cuckoo Marlin. Now, a little while ago, we were showing you, and Chris was commenting on the fact that his left front wheel was smoking. Well, they have changed that tire. We have a further report of Dave Marcus, who crashed into the wall in the backstretch a while ago, from the hospital now. They say that he has 2 cracked ribs. He's okay, and he won't be in there long. There is Cuckoo Marlin back on the racetrack with his new tires, and we're glad to see that he's much safer and more comfortable out there now. There are still just 9 cars remaining in this race out of a starting field of 36.
Jim, some people who are arithmetically inclined might wonder why we say this is a 5/8 mile track and it's a 250-mile race, but they're going 420 laps. A full 5/8 mile track would require only 400 laps of racing to complete 250 miles. But NASCAR measures tracks 10 feet in from the outside rail, and this one fell a few feet short of 5/8 of a mile, hence the 420 lap distance to complete 250 miles.
10 laps to go. The lap count coming up from NASCAR scores downstairs. But we'll be watching very carefully for the white flag, which will be the sure sign that there is just 1 lap to go for the leader. That won't be very long now as we approach the finish of a 250-mile race in Nashville. There's the second-place car of Bobby Allison, of the Racing Allison Brothers from Alabama. Hueytown, Alabama, to be specific. Bobby is the older of the two, 32 years old, and one of the top NASCAR drivers. He's won 16 races in his Grand National career. It started back in 1961. However, he had just a few races in 1961, then dropped out until 1965. But he's been a regular on the tour since 1965. He won a total of $197,000 in his career.
He's one of those drivers, Jim, that really had it tough getting his first big victory. He was on the circuit, had fine cars, and moved around from one stable to the other, had more than his share of accidents, and it looked as though he was going to be one of those athletes that never made it to the big time. And then finally, he started pushing through and getting the checkered flags, and he's today one of NASCAR's top stars.
And again, we see the roller coaster background for the round and round carousel racetrack here with the carousel pits at Nashville, Tennessee. Look at that 35-degree banking. That is really something. You stand at the top of that, you can't believe it, can you, Chris?
It's very, very steep. Turns 1 and 2, the outside of the track is pretty level, but turns 3 and 4, if a car should go over the wall, it's about 35 or 40 feet down. And if he gets any kind of elevation, he might wind up in a municipal swimming pool that's over there.
Less than 5 laps to go in the race now, and Bobby Isaac looks like a winner. Taking his lap speed down now. He can afford to let Bobby Allison take a lap off if he wants. Allison now is about 300 yards from doing that, I would say. Standing by for the white flag. It'll mean 1 lap to go for the leader, and then the checkered flag will mean victory for Bobby Isaac. They're getting that white flag out now. The checkered flag standing by.
Isaac is one of the few drivers, Jim, that makes the entire circuit of all Grand National races, and it's not easy. As we said before, he has several of these cars in the Harry Hyde garage, sponsored by the K&K Insurance Company of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and a great stable at his command to maintain this arduous circuit that he undertakes year in and year out.
Victory getting closer and closer. The youngsters trying to break ranks and get down near the finish line to see it happen and then to get a real good look at the winner. Look from the crane camera overhead. We're near the end of a long, hot, grueling afternoon in Tennessee. Live coverage today on ABC's Wide World of Sports. The white flag is out. 1 lap for Bobby Isaac. And then it's all over. This is the final tour of the course for him today. The man who was most vocal before the race and saying that he didn't like the looks of the racetrack, didn't like the looks of the day, didn't like the idea he had a race last night, and he lost last night, by the way, by a half a car length to Richard Petty. He was in a real bad mood before the race, in other words. He should be happy now because there it is. There's the checkered flag. Bobby Isaac has won this Grand National 250-mile race in Nashville, Tennessee.
And about $3,100 in prize money.
Isaac, the winner. We'll try to have a word with him when we return in a minute. We're back at Nashville. There's the winning car of Bobby Isaac. A reminder here that ABC's Wide World of Sports will not be seen next Saturday, so that we can bring you exclusive coverage of the Westchester Golf Classic from Harrison, New York. 2 weeks from today, we'll return. Here's a colleague of mine to tell you more about that show, which will emanate from the Orient. Right now, however, we're still in the heat of Tennessee. Let's go down for a word with the winner to Dr. Don Tarr in the pits.
Bobby, congratulations, but you said you were going to cool it. What happened out there?
Well, thank you very much, but I did. I run slow. It's like I said, the racetrack was too fast for the equipment that we have nowadays, and you see what happened to most of the cars that did run hard. Besides, it only paid about $3,200. It's one of the cheapest races we run, and I just didn't feel like that I should come here and take a chance on turning the car all to pieces for that amount of money, so I slowed up and was fortunate enough to win it because most of the hard runners did have trouble.
Looks like everybody else had their problems, and you just came through at the end, doesn't it?
Well, that's what happens when on the racetrack. I guess when you run too hard, it puts you by the wayside.
Bobby, it looks like you also lost about 10 pounds in water out there.
Well, it was pretty hot, but like I say, I run pretty conservative, and it wasn't too bad.
Do you know you're back in the Grand National, you're back champion again, the Grand National point standings?
Well, I'm leading right now, but it's a lot of races to go, and we have to wait and see what happens.
There's your winner, Jim, Bobby Isaac.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. They were pretty negative comments from a winner, Chris. He still doesn't like the racetrack, he still didn't like the heat, and he still didn't like the prize money for a $250 race.
Well,
but that's the way the man feels about it.
This will show you what happens when you don't get a night's sleep, what it does to your attitude.
Makes you a little cranky, doesn't it? A little bit of a correction with Keith Jackson on the videotape you saw for the Japanese All-Star game said that'll be on next week. It won't be next week, of course. It will be 2 weeks from today. When Keith recorded that, he thought it would be next week. The final standings, as the traditional kisses from the beauty queen are awarded to a somewhat disgruntled Bobby Isaac, the final standings show Bobby the winner, disgruntled or not. Second place going to Bobby Allison. Third place to Neil Castles. Fourth place to Cecil Gordon. Fifth, J.D. McDuffie. Sixth, Cuckoo Marlin, a fine boost for his campaign, no doubt. Good finish. Seventh place, Ben Arnold, relieved by Ray Williams. Eighth place, Jabe Thomas, relieved by Wendell Scott. And ninth place, Eddie Yarbrough, Y-A-R-B-R-O, not related to Leroy or to Cale, the more famous Yarbrough racing men.
Jim, people might be wondering why the heat did not force some of the drivers to use the cool suits. Bobby Isaac was one who used to use one, and I asked him this morning why he wasn't using one on this tremendously hot day, and he said that he always got a cold after a race in which he used one of those cool suits, so he'd just rather undergo the perspiration and discomfort of racing without one. A cool suit is the suit with the little tubes of water that run around the uniform to keep the driver cool in the car.
You know, those cool suits can have their drawbacks. I remember Buddy Baker told me a couple weeks ago, I said, why don't you wear it anymore? He said, well, you know, I used to wear it, but he said, one time I ran out of ice in the car, and instead of being a cool suit, it became a hot suit. In fact, the water in the little tubes inside started boiling, which would be a pretty tough way to spend any afternoon, particularly one like today. The temperature here, remember, was up near the 100-degree mark. So was the humidity. And Bobby Isaac, unhappy, disgruntled, cranky about the prize money, and not liking the racetrack, stuck it out and won the race. 250 miles before 20,000 people, which the promoters of the race say is the largest summer sports crowd in the history of Tennessee. Bobby Isaac looking the picture of a winning race driver, looking a touch mod with his bangs and his modern haircut, will return, however, to Catawba, North Carolina. That's his home, here in the Southland, where today he was the winner. Our thanks to Chris Economaki and to Dr. Don Tarr, the race driver and physician who worked with us in the pits. ABC's Wide World of Sports. The executive producer, Roone Arledge. The coordinating producer, Jim Spence. Our producer here in Nashville was Ned Steckel, and our director was Chet Forty. The associate producer was Bryce Wiseman. Our associate directors were Bernie Hoffman, Ronald Hawkins, Roger Goodman, and Jack Gallivan. Technical directors, Jerry Bucci and Dave P. Remember, next Friday, the College All-Star Football game from Chicago beginning at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on ABC. ABC's Wide World of Sports will not be seen next Saturday, so that we can bring you exclusive coverage of the $250,000 Westchester Golf Classic. 2 weeks from today, the Japanese All-Star Baseball game from Osaka. For now, this is Jim McKay for Chris Economaki and Dr. Don Tarr saying so long from Nashville. A little country music to play us out. Another look at the winner. Air travel arrangements made through and promotional consideration furnished by TWA, the Sportsman's Airline. Whether you're a sports spectator or participant, TWA is your kind of airline. We go where the action is.